leap into the geometry of experience. We're going to be looking at the hands as an expression of our width. And the hand's ability to, conform to the shape and the possibilities of the side. We have this dual nature, this capacity to draw the opposite sides of the hands together, to use the arch in the hand, which is in a way like a metaphor for the whole body. And each arm, it has this connection with the whole side and this capacity to support the whole side. And, it's a really interesting thing too, to look at the sides, because mostly our experience is organized toward the front. We have the eyes there and the nose and the mouth, and, our arms are organized to move, and to do things in front of us, and the limbs, we can move in all directions, but everything's facing forward. And yet to the side, we can still move to the side, we can sense to the side. And indeed our primary organ of balance, of orientation to the planet, is via our ears, via the semicircular canals in here. And they're at the sides. And everything's in pairs. There's two eyes, two sides to the nose, two sides to the tongue, two lungs. So much of what we do is expressed in width, but in a way it's a little bit difficult to sense that, because the world is organized in a very two-dimensional way, particularly with the advent of screens, or really could argue since print, but since screens, and often the images, the ideas of the body that we're culturally entrained into wanting to conform to, they're often two-dimensional. We see them on a screen or a page. And so in terms of our anxieties, in terms of the things where we're trying to be something that we're not, it's often a two-dimensional sense of ourself that is the framework for how we actually, are anxious and worried. So to actually consider the sides, is to consider the peripheral rather than the thing we're immediately focusing on. And it's a healing thing to do, and it makes you much more present. I mean, I think of those times when I go to a music festival or some large gathering that's spread out over a large field, and my head is high because I'm taking everything in, and I'm sensing, I'm hearing things, I'm looking, I'm sensing in the width, and it's always such a lovely feeling. And the other thing is that, to sense the middle, where's the middle of the sides, is a really interesting question, because it's moving. Often if you consider where you feel your side, you may feel, one area of your body, because it's very easy to do that when we consider our body, to just sense what we're focused on in that moment. But, the sides, it's the whole side. And, it's flexible because we rotate. And when we rotate, the middle of the side, it shifts its orientation. And also it depends on our orientation. If we're lying on the floor, or if we're underwater, the sense of where the side is, and how we sense that becomes different. Why don't we look at some pictures here? Not too much, we won't need to do much, but it's useful to reflect on the sides. Each side of our nose, and each eye, the space in the throat, on each side of the throat, in the larynx, there's two vocal folds that come together, one for each side. And there's also the space inside the, inside the envelope of skin and muscle and in the rib cage. The shape. Often when we think of the sides, we may tend to think of our arms or our ribs or some part, but it's really interesting to divide, the brain is in two halves. So what we can sense through our peripheral vision and hearing on the side, it's really an interesting thing. And the shape of the side, from the inside, this volume in here, the feeling from within. This is all full of stuff, of course, but there's still the sense of this outline. And it changes in quality the further we go into it, the different places within. Within the pelvis. The pelvis. Actually, let's look at this from the side. It's an interesting shape. It's sort of similar in shape to our ear. Isn't it? We might consider that in the class, and there's a socket here at the side, that could fit an eye. How do we sense the side? How do we sense the space around us? Because you can, can't you? You can feel when people walk into your space or sense something coming in from the side. Sometimes even if a ball, if it's coming in, you can reach up and, hand will automatically go to the space where it is, because there's that sense of spatial awareness that we have. And, the side itself is interesting too, in that you have bone here, and then you have muscle here and the intestines mostly, and then some of the organs, and then rib cage here and the lungs and the kidneys and the pancreas and the stomach, all within here, and then more space in here, and with the neck, and then solid with the head. But the shape of it through here, to sense the shape of that. And as we roll, we roll to one side, we have the sense of our body on the ground. We're on the ground. And, if we're half on the, in this orientation here, we'd be leaning on this side of the stomach. And so if we were looking from above, the line of gravity would fall through halfway through here, and then go down to halfway through the left-hand side of the back and halfway through the right-hand side of the front. So to get a sense of this elliptical shape and how it, how it can function, how it can move, how it can support us, how we reorganize it when we lift ourselves up over a fence using our hands, or if we, stand on our hands, or if we pick something up. And then, there's this week, it's really, the hands and the arms are an expression of width. It's our height. You put the arms out to the side and, that's your height. It's a good party trick, actually, because many people just would, if they're tight in the shoulders and they pull their shoulders in, they'd never think that the spread of their arms is their height. But you can do it as a party trick. You get people to, lie on the floor with their fingers at the wall, and you mark the point where they go, and then get them to lie lengthways and they see it. Oh, very interesting. But the shoulder girdle too, that's the difference in with the width of our body, with our arms and our hands, because the shoulder girdle is connected bone to bone here, but the back of the shoulder girdle is only connected by muscle. It means that we can slide the shoulder girdle around the rib cage. So, we can be in a handstand if you're a gymnast and twist ourselves. So we're just balanced on one side and one quarter. So that rotates the idea of where the front and where the side is. And often if we're on our back, and we have the experience of our weight on the floor, and you can see it's this lozenge shaped here. It's good to sense that from the inside here. And we feel our weight. If we roll to the side, because we're not completely round, something's got to reorganize. And there's so many strategies for how we do that. But usually when in the past, when I've got you rolling over to the side, if you have your arm here, it's an impediment, and you've got to lift yourself up over it because the shoulder's so wide. So mostly we move our arm out to the side. And then the shoulder blade and the clavicle can get out of the way, the rib cage can roll over it. But we can roll over the side. You can roll right over this whole ellipse here. And there are some movements where that's, gives a real advantage. It adds more leverage. When you're hurling something, for instance, or and we've got this curious organization of the hands here, where if you spread, you'll see when we do the lesson, if you spread the thumb and the little finger apart, it's the full depth of your head, full depth of your chest or your pelvis. I mean, with different exceptions, depends on your hands and your body, but mostly when we spread the fingers, it's the width of our body. So we have the width of the hand is the full depth of the body. And we have this curious setup here with the forearm. We have a big bone here and the small end there, and the big end here and the small end here. So it's like a block. And they're joined by this membrane through here, so that the force is expressed through this muscle, but then it's distributed through here in this two bones that can rotate. And then, the little bones in the wrist here and each of the fingers can adapt themselves so that, wherever we are, what position we're in, we can still use our arm or our hand as an extension of the full side. And the legs, well, the arms, they connect into, if you look at the muscle, you've just got to look at this here. It connects from right down to the pelvis, and, well, there's a lot of muscle missing here, but right up to the head. In fact, let's go to a different model. That's what I want, this one. From the pelvis to the head, you have this connection through the arms, so that when we're throwing things or pushing or manipulating things, we use the power of the entire torso. And of course, if we're standing, we reorganize the legs. We, can use the power of the legs. But, the arms have this direct connection into both the shoulder and the pelvis in a very direct way. Whereas, I'm going to argue next week that the feet, they're an expression of length of the body. They connect through to the head. It's through the pelvis and the chest, but it's in this line here. Whereas the arms, they work in this horizontal format. And then you have the connection between the opposite arms and legs, where you get this spiral that rotates around the head and the pelvis. But today we're going to be examining the arms and the hands and feeling the different contours here. How we roll over it, and just considering, what is the experience? Because it's within here, that we process life. You may go weak at the knees, or, feel ecstatic and jump for joy, but mostly the sensations that we have in our day-to-day experience, it's within the torso, it's within the gut, the way the gut is functioning, the way we are breathing, and the way our heart is moving. And within the head, the face, the interrelationship with everything and everyone we meet, how we communicate. And so opening up and becoming aware of the sense of the sides and the possibility that the arms have to operate in front of us, and they've got this capacity to lift up above our head, reach behind us, directly out at shoulder height or into the front here, down to the sides. And when you move your arms in these different positions, they're able to contact the torso in different ways. And that's really the essence of what we'll be doing today. So let's explore this, the geometry of our experience, the sense of the front and back of each side. If we divide from the midline out to here, there's the front, and then from the midline here through to the spine, there's the back. The length of that and the shape of it. These two like bell shapes that join together in the middle. Shall we explore this? And then we'll see how it influences the way we write. And in fact, let's begin by writing something first. See how this influences your ability to write today. But could you write now just whatever comes to mind about what is central in your life? What is central in your life? It's an interesting thing, isn't it? You could probably leave that because we'll come back and do that again at the end. But, someone said in the last class, you're talking about the center, yet we're dealing with the sides. And it's the center of the sides. That's quite a big question to ask you, what's central in your life. What was the experience of considering that and actually putting something down on paper? And where did you feel that? What was the sense of it? Well, put your paper and pen in a position somewhere where it's handy, because I'll ask you to reach for it at some point. And could you lie down on your back? Right. Well, lie here on your back. and sense your sides. I noticed you tend to focus on one side more than the other. Did you think of one side first? Or did you think of both of them? And when you think of the sides, do you think of, a particular part of your body, like the sides of your rib cage, or your pelvis, or your head, or your limbs? Or do you think of the whole side, from your feet right down to your head? And have your arms out at shoulder height. The legs, to think of the side of the legs, you're thinking of the outside of the legs. But to think of the arms relative to the side, it's a bit more complicated, because they can move directly out to the side like this. So the inside and the outside of the arm, it really depends on their orientation. And feel your breath. The breath moves in all directions, or your body moves in all directions as you breathe, but it moves out to the sides, to lungs. Sense the way your ribs move, the way the space between the ribs opens as you breathe in. And consider the long bones of the fingers that extend right through the palms to the wrists. And as you breathe in, just spread your fingers and the bones within the palms a little bit, and as you breathe out, let them relax. And as you relax, and as you feel more of your body moving as you breathe, maybe you feel more of the sides moving. And where is the center of each side? The middle of the sides. Is there a point on the rib cage that you think that's the middle? That's halfway around from the front to the back, or vice versa. Or maybe it's the hip sockets. Can you sense where your hip sockets, they're facing outwards? or your ears. You know, at the ears, the middle of the side, at the head. And what about from the inside? You know, the shape of the inside of your body, inside of the pelvis, and the belly, rib cage, your neck and head. Each side of your tongue, each side of your mouth and nose, what you can sense. And the peripheral visual field. Now bring your palms together above your chest. Look at that line where between the palms, along the midline. Maybe move your palms, up above the head and then down the midline of the body, over your face and neck and your chest, down toward the pelvis. Sense your volume. The distance between the front and the back of the whole of each side. And the character, the feeling within the belly to each side and the chest or your head. Or your arms. Have your hands above your chest and just press the hands together. Press the hands together and feel how, when you do that, how do you use the side of your body? How much of each side contributes to the way you press your hands together? Well, try just pressing through the little finger side, move the thumb and first fingers apart and just press through the heel of the hand and notice what parts of you feel to each side. And then do it with the thumb and first fingers. Move the heels of the hand and the little fingers apart and just press the base of the thumb and the first fingers together. And what do you sense through your body? And then place them together again so that the whole of the palm and all of the fingers can press. And sense how it feels. And then leave that. Let your arms out to the side. Sense the space in each direction. And now roll onto your right side with your right arm still out at shoulder height and your left arm in the air toward the ceiling. So now we're lying on the right side Consider where is the middle of the right side here. Front and the back. And now bend your elbows, so your elbow is pointing toward the ceiling, but allow your hand to rest on the side of your ribs on the left hand on the side of the ribs. And keep your hand where it is, but roll onto your back. So your hand will drag across the front of your body and end up, at the sternum in the middle of the rib cage. And then once again, roll onto your side and let the hand stay where it is so that the torso is dragging underneath the fingers. Do that again and feel, you can sense the shape of the side, of this front side of your body by rolling over to the side and just allowing your fingers to drag over the surface. You could move yourself forward and do the same thing. Let your fingers stay above. And so you go from the back to the front now. And it's like your fingers, they're just like drawing a topographical map. You can feel all the contours and the shape of the curve round the back, round the side and round the front. And you could move your hand, down a little bit toward the pelvis or, up in the direction of your head in your own time so that you draw a topographical map of this side. It's as if that what your fingers are receiving here, it's now being printed out on a bit of paper by a computer. And so you're getting a map of the shape of the side. And go from here, down to the pelvis and then back up and up to your head. So you feel the shape of the whole side. And you can be aware of the amazing range of movements that are capable with your arm and your hand, your shoulder, to enable you to do this, to feel the whole of your side. Right up to your head. And then leave that. Notice how each side feels. The left side you are touching, the right side you are rolling on. We'll roll onto the right side again, but this time, could you roll right over onto your stomach so you're lying on your arm? You may have to lift your head. That's fine. So you roll over the arm. And a moment ago we were sensing how we were shifting and the shoulder and rotating the arm so that our left hand could touch the outside. Notice what your arm does here to roll over it. And your arm is a lever, so you get to a certain point when you're on your stomach and the elbow presses into the ground, and you could roll right over onto your left side now. Roll right over onto your left side. So you're lying on your left side and you have your right hand underneath the shoulder, holding onto the side of the ribs. Do that again. Feel the weight of your body rolling over onto your back. And whilst you're there, collect and then roll back again onto your left side. And bring your paper and pen and have that nearby. So you roll onto your left side. With your left hand underneath the shoulder, and just consider, where is the middle of the side here? And what can you feel with your left hand? Well, take your pencil or pen or whatever implement you have, and with your left hand, and just hold it on the paper. You don't have to look at it. Just hold it there and feel the weight of the pencil on the paper, and sense the shape of your side. And without looking, could you now draw a line that represents the shape of your side? Maybe, consider the contact that you have with the floor, and, the parts of the left side of your body that are on the floor. Could you draw now that shape without looking at it? You're just sensing it and allowing your left hand to move, dragging it across the page. And usually when we feel something with our hands, we move it about. So, move yourself. You could move your right hip and feel how that rotates the rib cage. Rotate the right hip. You could move your leg if you like too. We're moving the right side in order to get a clearer feeling of what's going on in the left. And as you're moving, just draw that, the feeling inside you here. And then leave that and roll back onto your back and rest for a moment. What do you notice? Now, place your hands above your chest toward the ceiling. That's straight ahead, and out to the side, that's a 90-degree angle. And you could lift your hands up at 45 degrees. And if we were standing, we could move them backwards. And if you have your hands down on the ground, slide your hands down by your side. You move them out to the side, that's 90 degrees. You move them down, it's, halfway between the side there, it's 45 degrees. Or if you move them above shoulder height, 45 degrees, we can function there. Well, place your hands at 45 degrees away, your arms 45 degrees away from the side. And now, roll over to your right side. Roll over to your right side and feel how it's different rolling across your arm, what your arm does in order to roll over to this side. Do it a few times and feel, how your arm can function as a lever here. When you roll on it, there's a certain point you reach the elbow. And maybe you become aware of the connection of the arm from the head down to the pelvis. And if you think of the connection of the elbow down to the pelvis, it may make it easier to to roll over that side, to lift your head. And stay right on the left-hand side now. And this time, so your right hand is underneath your rib cage. It's under the lower part of the rib cage. What do you feel here? What's the quality of sensation within you? Well, once again, take your pen. You could do a different page or somewhere else and place your pen or the brush or whatever you have. And now move yourself. Move the right side, move your right hip, which of course moves the left hip. And draw the feeling you have of this left side within you. You know, you could move your leg. You could rotate yourself a little bit where the shoulder goes forward and the hip goes back, or vice versa. But whatever you need in order to tune in to the feeling in this left side and what you can feel with your hands under the lower ribs. What wants to open? Maybe your jaw. What does that enable you to feel? You can be on the front half of the side. What's that feel like? And on the back half of the side. And leave that. And notice it's probably a qualitatively different drawing you've just done in passing, but leave that and just roll onto your back now and sense how that feels. Sense of your interior. So put your hand, your right hand, at 22.5 degrees. That's, we went from the shoulder down to 45 degrees, half again toward your body. And roll over the right side again, feeling the changes that you make on that side in order to roll. And so when you roll onto the left side here, your right hand will be under your hip. And if you look at me when I'm doing it, I'm lifting my head a lot of the time. It's just because of the microphone. You could let your head hang. But roll over onto your left side, so your right hand is underneath your hip. And just consider how it is here. I mean, the hip is interesting. It's sort of shaped like an ear. Consider the ear in your head and the ear of the bone of your pelvis. What they can hear in the ground. And take your pencil and draw that. with your left hand, you can move yourself, you can roll yourself a little bit, or circle your hip, or move your leg. Anything that's going to enable you to feel the left side of the pelvis with your right hand. This is your center. This is, half your height as well. What's the feeling in here? How do you process sound through your pelvis? If you're walking in the bush and suddenly you hear an extraordinary bird call, so beautiful, and you stop. How do you feel that within your pelvis? And then leave that roll onto your back and rest. What's the difference here? What's the feeling inside you and the sense through your arm and hand? Well, place your right hand above shoulder height and roll over onto the side, noticing the different movements you need to do within your shoulder to do this. And roll right onto the left side this time, so your hand, your right hand will be under your head. It means your left hand will need to be underneath the right hand in order to find your pencil there. And lie here on your left side, holding the left side of your head. And consider the shape of the side of your head. And take your pen or pencil and begin to draw here. Just draw your sense of its shape and the feeling. The senses and the rest of your body. You can roll your head or move your hips. You can move any part of the right side and just draw what you feel inside you. A sense of the left side participates in the way we sense the world. Feeling in the left leg. You may be moving the right leg around to move you. We may be moving from our head, but what's that sense through the whole side? And then leave that and roll onto your back and rest. Even with your eyes closed, notice your peripheral visual field, or this peripheral sensory fields. And how are they different given what we've just done? I'm just swapping my positions because we're going to swap sides. Consider your left arm and roll over onto your left side. Roll onto your left side a few times so that you could sense the shape of the back of your body. How it moves around to the side. Have your left arm extended out in front of you. And then lift your right arm up toward the ceiling. Feel the front and the back. Now, how is it on this side? To feel that elliptical shape from your head right down to your feet. And, keep your elbow up toward the ceiling, but let your arm bend so the hand is now sitting on your rib cage. And now roll yourself from your back to your front, allowing your hand to stay so it's, above the ground. And as you roll, it drags across your body so that you're making this topographical map of all the curves. And as you roll, you move it down. So you feel the shape of the side right down to your pelvis. And, up again, back up and right up to your head. What an amazing way our arm can rotate. The shoulder girdle can slide so that we could feel the front and back of the whole body. And then leave that, line your back. Once again, roll onto the side with your left arm out at shoulder height and roll over the arm now. Roll over the arm. Do it a few times to notice how your arm moves in order to allow that. And how your arm can become this lever that enables you to lift your head up. Have your pen and paper nearby, and next time you roll right over onto the right side so that your left hand is underneath your shoulder.
And just lie here sensing, what is the difference on this side? Maybe completely different, maybe not very comfortable. And you can always get a cushion or something and put under your head if you need. But lie on this left side with your left shoulder sitting on top of with your left hand sitting underneath your right shoulder, and take up your pencil and draw the shape of the side. Don't look at it, just feel the way your pencil drags across the paper. And maybe sense the shape of your body on the floor, your right side on the floor, and draw the imprint. Just allow your attention to wander through the space of your connection with the ground, and then you could move, you could move your left hip in a circle, and to enable you to further feel the sensations within the right side. Yeah. Move your leg or your arm. And then leave that and roll onto your back. Have your arm down at 45 degrees. And now roll over onto your right side. So your left hand will end up underneath your lower ribs. Feel those ribs, spaces between them. The way you move as you breathe. And then take your pen and draw without looking at it, just the feeling inside the lower ribs and this whole side. The feeling of your tongue in the mouth, the taste in your mouth on each side. And the smell. And you can move your left hip in a circle, or your left leg, anything that enables you to feel this right side, with your hand underneath the lower ribs. And how your hand can still flow even in this awkward position. You can move in a way that's a true expression of what you're feeling. And then roll onto your back and rest. You know, how's that image of the volume of your sides being filled in? Well, have your hands at 22 degrees or 22.5 degrees away from the side, halfway between 45 degrees and the side, and roll over it here. You know, so that when you get onto your right side, your left hand will be under your right hip. And notice the middle of your body here, half your height. And you're holding on to probably the front of the side with your left hand. But feel the whole pelvis bone, you know, where the middle is. You sense your ear, and now with your pencil in the right hand, draw the sense of the whole side, from your head right down to your feet. You know, there may be some places that are not as easy to sense. You can move yourself a little bit. So, you could open your jaw or move in some way that would enable you to feel it more. To surrender to gravity. Feeling your whole side on the floor. And then leave that and roll into your back again. Then move your left hand above shoulder height, and roll over onto the stomach, and then over onto the right side. Your right hand will have to go underneath your body so that your hand ends up underneath your head, your left hand under your head, and consider the shape of the side here. What you can sense. Feel right down to your feet. Move your jaw side to side. Near the inside of your nose. The inside of the whole side, and now draw it. Allowing yourself to move in whichever way enables you to feel more easily what's going on. And the shape from the side to the front and from the side to the back. And then leave that and roll onto your back and rest. Once again, place your hands together above your chest. Look at them. And use your left hand to push the right hand over to the right. And reach over to the right, so you roll onto the right side. And so that you have your right elbow on the floor and your left elbow toward the ceiling, and the hands are sitting on top of one another. So that you could press down on the left hand. You could push with the left arm, which would be pushing the right elbow into the ground. And maybe you find you can lift your head and even your shoulders a little bit by pushing with that left side. You push with the left arm down, and the left elbow is on the ground, and the right elbow is on the ground. The right hand is in the air. The left elbow is toward the ceiling. So your two forearms are making a line that goes from the ceiling to the floor. And you press on the left hand, that pushes directly into the ground. You can lift yourself up on the elbow there. As another way of considering where is the middle. Because the point where you actually, lift yourself up onto the elbow has to be underneath the center of the side. You'll naturally go there. And of course, if you're leaning backwards and you press on the left hand, it'll just push you further back. So you have to roll forward. You have to roll forward a bit so your left shoulder is in front. And then you can lift yourself up. You roll forward, so when you're on your right side, the left shoulder is further forward. So then you're more on the stomach, you press through the left arm, and you're using the whole left side to lift yourself up. You try it to the other side. You reach your hands forward to bend, then straighten them up so the two forearms make a line. You've got, when you're on your left side, your right elbow is toward the ceiling and the left elbow is in the ground. Fingers are pointing away from you probably. Well, they could be pointing up in the direction of your head. And then when you press on the right arm down into the left, it pushes into the ground. The left elbow into the ground, you can lift yourself up. You go side to side like that, using the top arm to the top side to lift you. You push down with the top hand, and due to the fact that that arm is connected to the pelvis and the head, you just think of rolling the pelvis, and if you move your legs, you can lift yourself right up to sit. And then come back down, put the hands together. So you're sort of rolling yourself to the side and up to sit, using each side. The hands are in that position as if you're saying thank you to someone. And the forearms are in a line. You rotate over to one side. You move if you want to lift yourself up, you move the top shoulder further forward than the bottom shoulder. And then when you press, it moves you forward. And of course, to come up to sit, you've got to let your legs go. You've got to let your legs separate. And then you can lift yourself up to sit. And then come back down again. And feel as you're doing this, how the hands connect to the whole side. You put your hands on the floor in sitting and feel that connection, how much you can move yourself here. And then you can use each hand, as a representative of the whole side to move yourself, to lift yourself up. That's lovely. Leave that. Leave that and rest there. Consider the sensations within you. The geometry of your experience or your felt sense of the world now. When you're ready, open your eyes and consider the width of the sensory fields. Peripheral visual field, hearing, smell, taste. And then when you're ready, roll onto your side and come up to stand. The feeling within you, the sense of the space around you and your ability to, to use your arms or to feel with your arms the space around you, to operate within that space. And notice as you walk how the sides contribute to the sense of space and how you move within it. And if you wished, but you don't have to, you could look at your drawings, because they're kind of interesting. They're all a little bit different, you may notice, relative to the experience. And then, once again, right, what is central? What is central to you? What's central to your life?